Is it truly an act of betrayal to save a friend from excruciating pain, or is it a violation of their dignity to protect them from the very thing that hurts them? Let us step back into the quiet, chaotic rhythm of a life lived in the margins of the 30-year mark. Here, we find two women who are more than just roommates. They are family, forged in the fires of shared rent, shared laundry, and shared dreams. They have stood together for years, navigating the messy, beautiful transition into adulthood. One of them, let's call her Sarah, possesses a condition that is as unforgiving as it is rare. A single gram of dairy can transform her body into a battlefield, twisting her insides with cramps so severe they can bring a grown woman to her knees, forcing her to curl into a ball of misery. And yet, despite this physical fragility, she is a person of immense spirit, a lover of life, a lover of food. Her roommate, the narrator, is a different kind of guardian, a passionate cook, someone who finds joy in the alchemy of ingredients, in the precise measurement of salt and the delicate balance of flavors. This cook has taken on the mantle of caretaker with a gentle hand. In their own kitchen, the safety is absolute. They know exactly what goes into the pot. They have mastered the art of making dairy-free meals that do not taste like compromise, meals that Sarah eats with a grateful smile, feeling seen and understood. But the world outside the kitchen is a different beast. It is a place of hidden dangers, of vague menus, of chef specials that might contain a secret pat of butter, and this is where the story begins to fracture. Years ago, during one of their many camping excursions, a trip that had begun with high spirits and the promise of starry skies, the duo stopped at a roadside eatery. A simple mistake. Sarah ordered a dish, unaware of the dairy lurking within. By the time the food was consumed, the pain had already begun. The narrator, having a sharper eye for ingredients and a deeper understanding of what constitutes safe food, stepped in. They approached the waiter, politely but firmly, pointing out the dairy, explaining Sarah's condition, and asking for a modification. The reaction was not one of relief, but of sharp, stinging embarrassment. Sarah, in the throes of the early warning signs of her pain, had looked at her friend with a mixture of confusion and hurt. She asked, politely but firmly, for the corrections to stop. "Don't do that again," she had said. And the narrator, wishing to preserve their friend's dignity and avoid any public scene, agreed. They went silent. They became invisible guardians, watching but not speaking, hoping that the chaos of the outside world would not catch up to them. But the outside world, as it often does, is relentless. Fast forward to last weekend. The air was crisp, the anticipation palpable. This was not just any trip, it was the culmination of months of planning. A kayak camping expedition to Posey Island, a tiny secluded jewel in the San Juan Islands of the Puget Sound. It was a place of magic. 2 campsites, rented exclusively for 2 nights, promised the luxury of solitude. The entire island would belong to them, and the timing was perfect, a celestial alignment of sorts. The trip coincided with the lowest tide of the month, promising an underwater world exposed for all to see, a treasure trove of tide pooling, of starfish and anemones and the hidden life of the sea. 4 souls embarked on this journey, the narrator, Sarah, a mutual friend, and the narrator's girlfriend. They had sacrificed much to make this happen. They had taken precious time off work, a luxury in the modern world, a rarity for people in their 30s. The logistics were grueling. They had woken up at 2:00 a.m., a time when the world is still dark and heavy with sleep. They had driven for 5 hours, a long haul that tests the limits of patience. Then came the ferry, a 2-hour crossing that cost $70 per person, a significant sum that weighed on the budget. And then the final leg, the paddle. The water was cold, the morning air biting at their exposed skin. They were heading into the harbor, a stretch of water they feared. Sarah, in particular, had a deep-seated fear of kayaking near large boats, a terror that had kept her from enjoying the water in the past. The rest of the group understood. No one loved the idea of paddling near massive vessels, the sheer size of them making the small kayak feel like a twig in a storm. So they went early. They took the first ferry, the one that allowed them to arrive when the harbor was quiet, when the water was still, when the giant ships were still docked or far away. They had done the hard work. They had paid the price. They had made the sacrifice. They arrived at the little restaurant near the ferry terminal, the last chance for a hot meal before the long paddle. The hunger was real, the cold was settling in, and they needed fuel. Sarah, perhaps tired from the journey, perhaps wanting to treat herself to something she thought was safe, ordered a dish featuring brioche bread, a classic mistake. Brioche is a rich, buttery bread, a delicacy that is delicious, but for Sarah, a potential death sentence. In that moment, the old rule was broken. The silence was shattered. "Don't get brioche," the narrator said. The voice was not shouted, but it was clear, cutting through the ambient noise of the restaurant. "It has a ton of butter." The look Sarah gave them was not one of gratitude. It was a dirty look, a glare that spoke of 1,000 suppressed frustrations, of a feeling of being treated like a child, of being publicly exposed as the person who could not handle a simple meal. The air in the restaurant seemed to thicken. The narrator saw the shame in Sarah's eyes, the flash of anger that had been building for years, the resentment of being the one who always had to be corrected, the one who always had to be watched. Sarah turned to the waiter, her expression hardening. She asked the chef directly. The chef confirmed the truth. The butter was there, the substitution was made, but the damage was done. The moment had been ruined. Sarah was peeved, her mood shifting from the anticipation of the trip to a simmering resentment. She felt humiliated, she felt controlled, and she had asked the narrator years ago not to do this, not to correct her in public, not to be the voice of authority over her own body. The narrator watched the scene unfold, feeling the weight of the decision. They knew the history. They knew that on several previous camping trips the pattern had repeated. They had stopped, packed up, and turned around, wasting time, money, and energy, because Sarah had eaten something with dairy. The cramps were so severe they had to abandon the trip, the joy of the wilderness replaced by the agony of the stomach. 2 of those times were not even Sarah's fault. She had ordered what she thought was vegan, only to find out later that the kitchen had made a mistake. The narrator knew that out of 5 or so such incidents, only 2 were Sarah's direct fault. The rest were kitchen errors, the chaos of the restaurant world. And they knew the frequency. They camp a lot, every weekend in the summer, many in the spring and fall. Yet, despite the frequency of their trips, the rate of these disasters was low. Less than 1 out of 10 trips had been ruined. But that one time, that one failure, was catastrophic. It was the difference between a memory of starfish and tide pools and a memory of pain and regret. So here we stand at the crossroads of the story. The narrator had just saved Sarah from a likely repeat of the past. They had prevented the pain that would have forced them to turn around, to abandon the island, to waste the months of planning, the early mornings, the expensive ferry tickets, and the precious time off work. They had prevented the group from facing the disappointment of a failed trip, a trip that was already a rare and precious thing. But they had done it by breaking a rule, by speaking up, by prioritizing the physical safety of their friend over her emotional comfort in that moment. The question hangs in the air, heavy and unresolved. Is the narrator the asshole for correcting her? Is it a betrayal of trust to speak up when the alternative is a night of pain, a ruined trip, and a return to the car with heavy hearts? Or is the narrator the hero, the guardian who sees the danger that the other cannot, the one who forces the hard conversation to prevent the inevitable tragedy? The narrator knows that Sarah loves them. They consider her family. They love her. But love, in this case, is complicated by the physical reality of Sarah's condition. It is a love that requires vigilance, a love that sometimes means being the villain in the moment to be the hero in the memory. The trip continued. They paddled out to the island. They explored the tide pools. They saw the sea stars and the hidden wonders of the underwater world. The day was beautiful, the isolation perfect, but the undercurrent of tension remained. The narrator wondered if the price of saving the trip was the trust between them. Was it worth it? Was the correction justified? The narrator reflects on the years of shared meals, the trips that went wrong, the ones that went right. They think of the fear in Sarah's eyes when she realized she had made a mistake, the relief when the narrator intervened, the anger when she felt controlled. They think of the days they spent cooking together, the joy of creating safe, delicious food. They think of the cost of the ferry, the early mornings, the sacrifice of time off work. In the end, the narrator is left with a question that has no easy answer. They saved the trip. They saved the day. They saved the memory. But they also broke a trust. They made a choice that prioritized the outcome over the process, the future over the present. Was it the right choice, or was it an act of arrogance, a belief that the narrator knew better than Sarah what was best for her own body? Was it an act of love, or was it an act of control? The silence of the island, the sound of the waves, the beauty of the morning all seemed to echo the question. What would you do? If you were in the narrator's shoes, would you speak up, risking the friendship, risking the moment to prevent the pain? Or would you stay silent, respecting the wish of your friend, and hope that today would be the day that the mistake didn't happen? The story ends not with a resolution, but with the lingering question, the weight of the decision, and the realization that sometimes the hardest thing to do is the right thing. What would you do? Drop it in the comments.